All right, good afternoon, everyone. Today I'm joined by Councilmember Mitch Gruber, Councilmember Smith, and Vice President Lupien, and we'll be having other council members potentially join us after. But we are going to be talking about the land bank and the annual report. And with that, I'll turn it over to Paul Scuderi.
Thank you, Council President Melendez. Appreciate your time and all members of council who have joined us. This is our annual report to council. We are a public authority, and so we are obligated through the Public Authorities Law to present this report to you, and we're happy to do it. So with that said, there are a handful of members, of board members and land bank staff that are on the call as well as Commissioner Miller, who served as board chair for many years. And I'm glad to see the commissioners joined us. With us, board members who are with us now is Carol Wheeler, who's the board chair, and she'll be presenting the report to you in its entirety. Also along with us is, I'm losing track of where people are on the screen here, our Deputy Commissioner Eric Frisch, board member Kurt Martin. I'm scanning back through here to make sure I'm not missing any other board members. I think they got them all. I'm Paul Scuderi. I'm the executive director of the land bank, and Ryan Mitchell has joined us, as well as Cindy Castillo. We all three work together, staffing and doing day-to-day operations. One member is out of town, Maritza Mejia, so she's not able to join us today. And I do appreciate everybody. Oh, and there's Jim Smith. I'm sorry. Okay. my page is moving around and I'm missing out where folks are. So we have a handful of folks from the land bank, and we're here to present our report to you. With that, I'm going to mute my mic and turn it over to Carol, who will take you through the report. And then if you have any questions, you can, Carol can help direct any questions, answer themselves, or direct them to some other folks. So Carol, with that, I'll hand it off to you.
Alrighty, thank you, Paul, and thank you everyone for being here. We did send out the report earlier. Hopefully people have had an opportunity to at least glance it. And I believe you were actually going to share the report on screen for me, Paul. All right, wonderful. Thank you so much.
Yep, you're welcome.
All right, so the Rochester Land Bank was formed back in 2013, and at that particular time, there were a total of 8 land banks. Right now, there are 26 land banks within New York State. And as Paul mentioned, one of the things that we are responsible for is making sure that we present our annual report to the municipality, city council. And as he mentioned, we are very happy to do so. Some of the information that we're going to be sharing includes the projects, the expenditures, and the administrative activities that we were involved in over the past year, since the last time that we made this report. The majority or large portion of the activities that we were involved in, they were the result of outcomes in our CRI 4 and CRI 4.2 activities. And CRI, for those that may not be familiar with those acronyms, it is the Community Revitalization Initiative. And these were dollars that we were able to receive from the state for our land bank and its activities. This is the final round. Our grant term will be ending, as a matter of fact, at the end of this year, actually end of the month, 2022. And the total amount of dollars that we're reporting on right now is the $1.9 million. And how have we been using those funds? Well, it was strategic blight removal, which includes demolition and acquisition. The land bank, its goal as far as demolition was 15 properties, but with our funds, we were actually able to take down 17 properties and 3 garages. And we were able to do that expeditiously. We actually took them down by the end of January 2021. The strategic blight removal acquisition, that was a challenge. And it was a challenge because over the past 2 years, we have not been able to have a tax foreclosure auction. And the majority of the structures that the land bank actually acquires is through the tax foreclosure sale. And so not having those sales for 2 years has really limited our ability to actually purchase property. But one of the things I can say about the land bank, we're able to pivot as far as being able to put the funds to other uses. And one is that besides to say acquisition, which is very, very important, and I can say that we did just recently begin to engage some private tax lien holders where we could actually purchase from, but that's a very small number. But we were able to, one, participate in a special project that's a historic preservation, and we're able to see the acquisition rehab loan fund. And we'll be talking about those a little bit later on. So one of the programs that was funded through this CRI grant is Neighborhood Builders. And this is a program that we operated along with the Greater Rochester Housing Partnership, where we built 5 single-family homes on vacant lots that had been purchased from the city. These are 5 brand new homes, 3 bedrooms, 1.5 baths, and they were all sold to low and moderate income first-time home buyers. And these properties were primarily located in the Northwest and Northeast. At the end of this actually presentation, the report, the addresses, in the event that you are interested in those, they are listed in the appendix. But very happy that we're able to build those brand new homes, and they were all sold, as I said, to low-income households. Home Rochester, this is our premier acquisition rehab program. We have a partnership with the Rochester Housing Development Fund Corporation, and this particular grant was able to provide subsidy for the rehab of the homes, as well as some environmental testing and remediation for 20 single-family homes, and all of these are being sold to low and moderately income first-time home buyers. The home ownership pilot program. Habitat for Humanity, we partnered with them, Flower City Habitat for Humanity. They have completed 4 projects. And again, this is an acquisition rehab program. As you may know, many of you on the call, that Flower City Habitat for Humanity, they have primarily been involved in new construction. So this is a little different for
This
them.
is wrong.
For them.
I kept going
They
in and
are-
out.
Pardon?
No, it's not.
Is there a problem? I'm sorry. Okay. So Flower City Habitat, they have completed 4 projects, and they've all been sold to first-time home buyers. And we're happy that they're on this platform in addition to their new construction activity. The special projects, historic preservation. This is one actually that's very near and dear to my heart. The land bank purchased 6 Madison Street from the city of Rochester. This property is located in the historic neighborhood of Susan B. Anthony, and it is currently going under renovation. And the one that's doing the renovation work is a local MBE WBE owner. And so we're very pleased that this particular project, it is a location that has been vacant for many, many years. It was in really, really bad condition, but this is going to be a completely rehabilitated property. And it will actually have 2 units, and those 2 units will be affordable rental. The acquisition rehab loan fund. One of the things I did wanted to mention, we talked about earlier where we didn't have the opportunity to actually spend down all the funds for just say straight acquisition because of no tax foreclosure sales. So this was one of the projects that we're able to do. And this next one that is up is the acquisition rehab loan fund. So the unspent acquisition and administrative grant funds, we are using them to seed the loan loss reserve to allow for home headquarters, which is located in Syracuse, a community development financial institution who has partnered with other land banks across the state to provide acquisition rehab mortgages for purchases of land bank properties who intend to be owner occupants. Very, very important. This is something that has been very difficult to do if you're a low income buyer, is to not only purchase a property, but making sure that there are funds available to actually rehab. And this particular acquisition rehab loan fund with home headquarters allows for that. So we, as the land bank, we are responsible for administrative activities, and some of those activities that took place over this past year were board resolutions, and there were 11 of them that are listed here. I won't go through each one, but I do want to say that yes, we do. One, I think is very important we authorized our membership into the New York Land Bank Association for 2021. We also, as you could notice, that we had resolutions relative to 6 Madison Street and other purchases that we were able to actually complete through the tax lien sales. And we also, what I think is very, very important is that every year we are needing to have an annual meeting, and at that annual meeting, a lot of land bank business happens at that particular time. One is the election of officers and other pertinent business that needs to occur, and that's usually in September of every year. Again, it really mentions other purchases that we did do. There are funds that had been identified through the state and local fiscal recovery fund, the ARPA plan, and we will be receiving funds from that. And with that, we did have to actually have a resolution for that. Going on down, we do have our acquisitions committee. We did pass a resolution to purchase a property at 4 Brooklyn Street. The land bank treasurer submitted our annual budget and financial plan to the Public Authorities Board back in April. And I mentioned to you about the land bank annual meeting. And I just want to mention something about that, which I think is important. And that is, at that time of that annual meeting, one of the things that we do on an annual basis is making sure that we review the policies of the land bank to make sure that we're remaining current and up to date. And I think that that is such a good practice, not only for the land bank, but any organizations that we are a part of, making sure that we're reviewing all the necessary policies. There's the audited financial statements from Freed Maxick. That was presented to and approved by the board. And just like to say that we had a clean audit. There were no findings, and there weren't even any recommendations as far as how we can improve, because we were doing such a great job. Next is the projects, and it just lists all the various projects and the amount of dollars that was allocated for each one. For CRI 4, the 1.3 million, for CRI 2, 4.2, $610,000. And it gives you, again, the dollar amounts that was dedicated to each one. And as you can see, for all of the projects that were listed here on this page, they were 100% complete and 100% actually spent down. The majority of these dollars, they were actually spent on Home Rochester and also neighborhood builders. The majority of the dollars were spent on those activities. The special project over at 6 Madison Street, where we're putting in $100,000, we're at 54% spent down, and to my understanding, we are at 75% completion. So we're really looking forward to that project actually coming to completion, and hopefully all of us will be invited to a ribbon cutting real soon. Another, the special program, Home Buyer Asset Protection Initiative. I'm happy there was $8,000 that had been set aside for that. We were able to assist 2 home buyers that were not going through a traditional lender or having a mortgage, having them to work with consumer credit counseling to make sure that they were able to get through the process successfully, and definitely giving them the education that they need so that there would not be the problems with their purchases. Then we talked a little bit about the Acquisition and Rehabilitation Loan Fund. And again, I just think that that is just an awesome opportunity for us, as far as being able to work with home headquarters to provide rehabilitation mortgages to those that are purchasing properties through the land bank. Been around a little while where, yes, we had, and some people may even recall this, a Dollar in a Dream program, where yes, one could purchase a property for the dollar, but where are all the rehab funds coming from? And this is an opportunity, if you're buying at a lower cost, the rehab dollars will be made available through this rehab mortgage. And I think that this is really going to help those lower income households able to purchase and rehab their properties. Other projects that we have been involved in is L2P West Side. And with L2P West Side, this is a lease to purchase project. We were able to secure some funds from the LIST Corporation, the Local Initiative Support Corporation, of $300,000. These $300,000 were initially going to be used for infrastructure at Charlotte 3. And these dollars were not needed or no longer needed, but there was a need for the L2P West Side project. So we were able to fill a gap. And so this is a project that has 41 new single family homes that are being constructed. They will all be completed by the end of this fiscal year. And what's very different about this particular project is it is lease to own. The first 15 years, it is a rental project, but at the end of that 15-year period, then those tenants or residents of those units will be able to purchase them. And they will be purchasing them at a much reduced cost. We know that how the program has been structured, that anyone that's purchasing those homes would have to be under 60% of the area median. Neighbors for neighborhoods. We have this one property that's still looking to be completed and purchased. This is 225, 227 Michigan Street. And we do have a photo at the end of this presentation that will show you what that actually looks like. But this is a project where the rehab is taking place, and the house will be a rental property, but it will be high quality rental for 20 years. So they have to make sure that the rents remain at a fair market rent level for 20 years. And we talked about pivoting and how we can actually acquire additional properties. So one of the things that has happened, and I mentioned earlier, is the engagement with private tax lien holders, and it's really to have the ability to acquire property other than at our own City of Rochester tax foreclosure auction. So this is an opportunity that we have taken advantage of, and it's really about being able to acquire blighted properties and providing high quality opportunities for owner occupants. For our initiatives, the Land Bank continues to increase its exposure in the community and will conduct a RFQ to identify partners that will help us with strategic blight removal and increase opportunities for owner occupancy. And typically, these are partners that participate with us along with the City of Rochester tax foreclosure auction. When we first started this RFQ process, identifying partners, we started out with roughly maybe 3 partners, just a handful. And the last time that we did this, we were able to identify 16 partners that wanted to help us on this platform. So we're looking forward to the release of this RFQ and hopeful that we will get just as many interested in this work. The City of Rochester, I think I mentioned this, had designated $2.4 million in ARPA funds over the course of 3 years to help to purchase properties. And again, we're looking forward to that. This is another opportunity for acquisition and rehab activities to help purchase properties, particularly on the private market. And we're looking to do this starting in 2023. I think we've talked about just say home headquarters. We're really looking forward to this being something that's transformational, that will really help to assist and support potential home buyers. We are looking to continue outreach strategies. We have a master email list where we can notify potential purchasers of upcoming auctions. and we are always looking to expand that. We are on the City of Rochester's website, again, with sale notifications and upcoming events and purchasing opportunities. If you go by any of our properties that are underway, there is signage in front, so people will know who is actually responsible for the project. We are participating in monthly conference calls with the members of the New York Landbank Association, and we do engage in national and state level legislative representatives to support land banks. So our financials, as I mentioned earlier, this is really taking right out of the audited financials, and it shows as far as operating revenues, we had received $818,529 as far as New York State grants. That's that CRI grant, and from the sale of real estate, and this is from previous sales. So we had a total operating revenues of $981,439. As far as expenses, it includes acquisition costs, the biggest renovation and construction, salary and benefits for staff, demolition, professional services, and other expenses, all of those totaling $1,086,449. Our change in net position was a negative $104,610. Our net position at the beginning of the year was roughly 1.1 million, and the net position at the end of the year at 1,073,958. As far as assets, what we have on hand is cash and cash equivalents, roughly 1.3 million. There's some revenues that are due from the city, and we have total assets of 1,320,676. And as far as liabilities, we have accounts payable of 40,723, and due to the City of Rochester, 205,995. Total liabilities, 246,718. And whereas our unrestricted net position is 1,073,958. As far as upcoming activities and what we will be involved in for the rest of the year and to the next time we present, we will be participating again with the New York Landbank Association's programs of remote education, always looking to learn more. And this is one of the things that's happening in lieu of annual conferences because of the COVID shutdown. We are looking and discussing how do we expand the land bank board, or maybe adding an advisory board, possibly to include, say, experts from the fields of construction, planning, fundraising, and public relations, and other disciplines that we believe may be important for us to do our work. We will continue to discuss the land bank foreclosure acquisition process to see what needs to be improved, how changes can be made. And we're always looking for ways where we can definitely increase the number of owner occupants through the programs that we operate. We will always look for new funding opportunities. As mentioned earlier, the CRI grant that has funded us up until this point is going away. I mean, the term ends at the end of this month. And so we do want to identify other resources that can, again, help us with the community development efforts that we would like to pursue. The land bank will continue working with the administration with landlord summits, and we'll present information regarding what it is that we do and why it's so important to partner with us. And if there are other community development efforts that we may participate in, we would, welcome those opportunities as well. And engaging directly with aspiring owner occupants by creating acquisition, rehabilitation, and financing opportunities for land bank properties. That's one of the things that is a high priority for the land bank and also the city administration, is increasing home ownership. And so we'll be looking at ways in which we can increase the number of homeowners we have within the city of Rochester. So again, you may hopefully have taken a look, but we will kind of just go through and let you know what's in the appendices. And we have a list of all the acquisitions and the dispositions for this reporting year. And we have the chart of the CRI projects by address and grant activities, and photos of some of these locations. So for the strategic blight removal acquisitions, so 6 Madison Street is a project that's currently underway. Mortgage foreclosure and lien holders, where we were able to actually purchase property, 225, 227 Michigan, and that was a part of the Neighbors for Neighborhoods, and 88 Rosemary Drive and 4 Brooklyn Street. We were looking to make sure that those are properties that go to owner occupants. Demolitions. Again, we did 17 demos, and that included 17 structures and 3 garages. And this is just a color-coded list of all the various projects that were funded through that CRI grant. So everything in blue is all the Home Rochester, the neighborhood builders, and pink or red. The green is Breck Street, or I should say green is the Hope or Habitat for Humanity. And as far as the demolitions that we were mentioning, those are all in yellow. And again, you see that special project again in kind of the orange.
So Carol, would it be appropriate to ask a few questions at this
Sure.
point?
Yeah, you can.
Okay, so
Go ahead.
the CRI 4, could you describe the period of time that covers? I know that this is an annual report, but just how long that funding has been in place for CRI 4?
CRI 4 actually, I think, started in 2018. And Paul, you can definitely correct me if I'm wrong, in 2018, and then we were awarded funds for CRI 4.2 in 2020.
Okay.
That's correct.
And then in terms of prioritization of demolition, or I guess my question would be, is there any rhyme or reason in terms of location, type of property? Are these properties identified through code enforcement and are then targets, or are they, is there a specific geography that you're looking to address through the land bank? could you maybe talk through the strategy of how you arrive at targeting some of these properties for demolition and investment?
I can take that one, Carol. It's not actually, I wouldn't call it a target. It's an evaluation exercise. And same in a similar fashion, excuse me, as when the city takes a bulk group of properties, Landbank will do the same process. We actually go out and do a physical interior and exterior inspection of each property to make the evaluation of whether we think it's saleable. Anything can be fixed, right, if you have enough money. But when it reaches a point where it's not a reasonable expectation of the market or of an investor to put money into it, then it becomes more realistic to demolish the structure, create a vacant lot, and then try to position it for redevelopment with a new structure after that. And so we make those evaluations kind of routinely, and some are easy, right? You don't realize the property's, fire damage till you get inside it, something like that, or has substantial roof damage or water damage. Those are the easy ones. The other ones that are kind of on the tipping point, and as Council President Lien, as you know, you worked in this field probably for, you have a lot, you can probably say a lot about it. But you get to these ones that are, they're kind of, sometimes they could be fixed, sometimes they should be demolished. A lot of times we'll try to sell them first and see what the market says. And if we put it out there once or twice and no one's bid on the properties, and we always try to elicit feedback from folks who've done the inspections, as a potential purchaser, and then we'll make a determination from there. And if it's just too far gone, it's just too far gone. And as we all know around here, eventually an unoccupied or vacant property, the weather eventually wins, and that's just sometimes that just happens sometimes. So that's how we'll make the determination. Sometimes we know right away that they need to be demolished. Others we're not so sure on. So it's a long process. I know that's a long answer, but it's a long process, and we take steps all along the way. We visit every single property and we do a full interior and exterior inspection.
In a similar vein, just to talk about garages, because I saw that there were 3 garages that were demolished. Is that emergency demolitions that tend to target garages, or are there specific strategies around that?
Those were, one of them was an emergency, was falling and leaning, and I believe it was kind of leaning on the neighbor's fence. And it was, literally you probably could have gone and pushed it over, probably didn't even need any equipment. The other ones were just as a result of just kind of sitting, and the roofs had, one of them, I remember the roof had kind of completely fallen in. You walk inside it and you could see right up. So there was, again, if we wanted to pour what we felt was an unrealistic amount of, or unreasonable amount of money into it, we could have probably reframed the roof and some of the ties and redone it. But at that point, you're putting a lot of money into a structure where you haven't touched the side walls, you haven't touched the foundation. So, and if they're more of a detriment to a property, then we think it's in the best interest of the property for the investor to just remove that structure. Otherwise, they're going to get saddled with trying to fix it, and those kind of things. The margins are tight. Something like that can can flip the property pro forma to where it's no longer feasible. So we'll take a look at all those kind of things. This is just kind of one of those scenarios where we had 3. It hasn't happened in the past where it's been that kind of frequency. But in those situations, and luckily we had the money to do it, so we were able to clear those back lots, and they set up real nice. People, I think, we kept the concrete pads there so they could put a shed on top of it and still be able to have somewhere to put garden tools, those kind of things, where you wouldn't otherwise have the opportunity.
Thank you. I know Council Vice President Mary Lupien, you had a question.
She's not here. I got one.
No, I got it. I couldn't find the mute button. For the neighbors, is it the neighbors for neighborhoods where maybe it was above, you talked about fair market rent? Is that the right project I'm thinking of?
Yes.
I was just wondering, is fair market rent considered affordable, or is that market rate?
Fair market rents is the maximum that they can charge, and it is considered an affordable rent.
Does it have an AMI range?
It usually 60% and below.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Mhm.
Councilmember Gruber, you had a question?
Yeah, thank you. I actually have two. So the first is when Councilmember Ortiz was on the land bank board and was talking to us about some of the work there, there was a lot of conversation around kind of advertising, promotion, marketing, and I heard you kind of mention that a little bit, Carol.
Mhm.
And I think about 6 Madison Street, which I share your enthusiasm for what's going on there. However, I also think that we all know that we didn't get what we wanted out of 6 Madison Street. We genuinely wanted an owner occupant purchasing that facility or that building, and that didn't happen. And I can't help but link the two things. So I'm wondering, is there still a goal or a sense of trying to do some more kind of marketing and promotion around the land bank? How are we going to reach more people?
You're exactly right. That is something that we do want to do, and that will be something that we're working on over this next year, is making sure that more people know about the land bank and what it is responsible for and what it can do, so that we can get more participation. And like I say, a high priority for the land bank is to increase owner occupancy.
Well, let me make a more specific recommendation. Then you had talked a little bit about potentially expanding the board a little bit. I would strongly recommend trying to include some marketing and advertising professionals on that board. I'm certain that there are some people in this community who are looking for opportunities to give back and to serve, and that would seem like a really good place where we can, the truth is the land bank can't do it all on their own with city staff who already have full-time jobs they're working on. But I think we need to build out a little bit more of a coalition to do some of this work, because 6 Madison, I was telling people how much money that was being given away, what the opportunity was. And the fact that we still couldn't get people to apply suggests to me more that there just wasn't enough knowledge about it. And I'd love to see us really build out an advertising and promotional and marketing kind of team for the land bank. So that's one thing. The other question that I have is related to, so I think we all understand why there have not been foreclosure auctions the last couple of years. And I think it's a good thing that the city has not engaged in foreclosure auctions. However, my understanding is that there's still auctions, right? The banks and other, if it's another foreclosing entity besides the city, there are other auctions. Are we ever competitive in some of those situations to try to acquire properties? Or does the land bank only even bid if it's a city foreclosure?
Councilmember Gruber, I can start with that one. There really have not been very many foreclosures, to be honest with you. There have not been that many auctions. There was a general shutdown of any type of foreclosure. And we do monitor the mortgage foreclosure activities that we used to be at the county, used to be on the county steps. Now they're at the court building. So they are starting to come back around. There was a period of time where there was none. And a lot of the properties that we saw came with a very, very large initial price tag. And what we felt from our evaluation is that the initial price wasn't conducive to our pro forma. It was worth more than we thought we'd be willing to pay on those, because we do have to put money into it as well. So we do monitor those, and we're monitoring private markets all the time. It's extremely competitive. I'm sure you're aware of that. Everybody's talking about that, how much it costs to buy a property now. So that's why we started to really try to get our feet in the door of the tax lien holders. And we've been able to acquire a couple from them. And, the first one's always the toughest, right? You kind of have to prove yourself to them. And the first one's gone along okay. So now they're starting to reach out to us a little more proactively. But to get back to your question, we certainly will be players there, and we have some working capital that we'll be able to use to go forward. The city's auction is not going to be until November. County, if they have an auction, was typically in September. We plan to be a participant there as well. So we are looking for other avenues to try to acquire properties. We didn't need to do that before. We had our hands full and plenty of inventory before, but now we really need to turn our attention the other way. And since things are opening up, those opportunities should be presenting themselves to us.
Okay, thank you, Paul. That makes a lot of sense to me. And I'm sure that some of the other auctions, it starts at a different place and maybe they're not the best investments for the land bank. And I certainly trust the acumen and expertise on the board for that. But I do think that we ought to be aggressive. I think that there are ARPA dollars right now, and we are in a moment where I think it makes a lot of sense for us to be aggressive, especially because we know that outside investors, people who potentially are never going to step foot in Rochester and are not going to treat their properties all that well, are also being aggressive. So I think we need to fight fire with fire in some ways on that regard. And I hope the land bank can be a tool to do that.
Mhm.
Yeah, we certainly want to. One of the limitations that we kind of put onto ourselves is we do not like to attempt to acquire property that's occupied. We don't want to be the entity that's displacing somebody or family. So that a lot of times excludes a lot of properties right off the top. So that's one of the first things we look at. It's a terrible situation to be in, and it happens sometimes accidentally. You think a property is vacant, and you show up a month later after you close, and there's people in there. So once in a while, it has happened. But we try, if we're very intentional not to get ourselves into a known situation like that.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Great. Any additional questions? I know that there's additional photos in the presentation as well. Any additional questions before we move forward? So we have just a few minutes left. I don't know if Carol, if there was any additional highlights you wanted to give before we wrap. We all have a copy of this as well, but just for the general public.
Yeah. So one of the things that just want to be clear of, and I think we were alluding to it with this last question, is that we do want to have the ability, and now with some additional funding, through ARPA and even some funds that have been made available from the city, to be able to acquire more properties. I would say even more strategic properties. Do believe that as we are working in various neighborhoods targeting, say for instance, some of our ARPA dollars in the Buy the Block program, I think we will be definitely looking closely in those areas to see if there is any opportunities. We do want to make sure that everything that we do is going to, definitely looking at being strategic, definitely want to support other community development activity. We do want to make sure that we're helping to increase home ownership.
Yeah, in that vein, I wanted to offer up for suggestion, jumping off of something that Paul said in terms of acquisition of properties where there's a tenant potentially in the property. I just wonder overall if there might be a model, and I'm not expecting an answer to this, but there might be a model that we could consider in the future where if there is a situation like that, there might be an opportunity for the tenant to also purchase from the land bank.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we've had a couple of incidents like that where there had been a tenant in a property, and they were given the opportunity to actually purchase the property. We would love those. We welcome those opportunities.
Yeah, we've actually had three successful situations like that have come up. And so, we do look for that, and that, in those situations, we do reach out to the tenant to see if that's something that they'd be willing to look at, if they want to be if they want to be in an ownership position. And some folks do, and some folks don't. And the folks that do, we work with them. And we had one individual, currently that we're working with right now that we're trying to maybe work something out to help them be in ownership position, and then help them, guide them through the rehab project. But again, it's difficult. Not everybody wants to do that, and it's sometimes pretty daunting to think that. And I think that had a lot to do with the situation on Madison. That property was really, really difficult, and I'm using that in quotes. Difficult. It's an understatement of the year. So it was it was surprising that we didn't get more interest, but when you looked at the scope of work that was needed, you kind of understand why it can be really overwhelming. And if it's somebody who doesn't do this type of work all the time, who has a 9-to-5 job, that's really over the top of what you want to do when you get out of work at 5. At 6 o'clock you get home, and all of a sudden you gotta worry about this and you got that. So we understood that part of it. But we do try to do that. It's happened 3 times. We do have a structure set up in place where we can put people in that position if that's something that they want to do. We're happy to work with them, and we want to work with them.
Great, thank you.
Mhm.
You're welcome.
Okay, well, if there's no further questions from council members, we greatly appreciate the update. I'm sure that if others who were not able to join us view this and are able to, they'll be able to answer or follow up with any additional questions that they may have. So we thank you both, and thank everyone else on the call as well for your time today, and we look forward to continuing this work.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much.
Have a good day, everyone.
Well done.
Bye, everyone.
Take care.
Take care.